Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. So, this is our first virtual CCE roundtable info session. So, we will be bringing in guest hosts and speakers to kind of talk a lot about the hospitality industry, where it is, give us inspiration, and just help us break through, right? So, today we have Chef Tom Ramsey, who's the senior executive chef with Aramark. Obviously, you all know Val Cadet, Director of Business Operations at the Enterprise Center in CCE. And if you don't know me, Jason Brook, the in-house consultant and help with any technical support for all the members through the Enterprise Center. It is a free resource for you. Don't forget that. So today, really, we want to talk, hands-on of we're moving into 2021 and we're all excited, and a lot of us have used the word pivot and transition our business. And I really wanted the opportunity to talk with a professional chef in regards to just inspiration. We're about to, we're coming into our winter months here, and I want to talk about ingredients and processes, systems to put into place as we, head into this new year. So, one of the questions that we're getting a lot is, when you're kind of creating a new dish, especially now into the winter months, where are you finding inspiration for creating something that's, new?
So for me, I try and look at seasonality, right? So like right now, we're into the fall, going into the winter, and that's one of the first things I want to look at because I want to take a look at what are the best ingredients for this current season that I'm going to be producing my menu in, whether it be in the season that we're in or if it's going to be a future season. Next is going to be repeatability. So can we reproduce this dish time and time again and it be the exact same? So I think for the most part, when folks come to eat or dine with you, if they enjoy one dish, they want to be able to come back and have that same dish again and it be just as good, if not better than the last time they had it. So another thing for me is my audience. So, you got to take a look at what are their likes, their dislikes, regionality. So people in Northwest may not like the same things as, the Northeast. Think of the age of your patrons. So palate develops differently for folks who are a little bit younger. It's a little bit different for folks who are a little bit older. And then next for me is, what's my inspiration? What gets me going when it comes to this dish? You know, what do I know is going to satisfy that guest? So certain folks look for certain things. Some people may like things that are a little bit more spicy, a little bit more diverse when it comes to what they actually like and what they don't like. So I just try and, hit it with a broad stroke.
Absolutely. I think you make a key point there, and whether you're just coming into the market as, whether you're doing food delivery or whether you're a catering company, or you've been existing for 5 to 10 years, really have a good understanding of your current clients or the clients that you're trying to target, and really understand what their flavor profiles are like, or what their patterns are that they've purchased before, and making those necessary twists and adjustments based on seasonality is absolutely a great point. So, coming into fall now, winter, what are some ingredients that you love to work with that you're going to start incorporating into some of your dishes?
So for me, I really like, fall, winter vegetables. They're some of my favorites. So some of my favorite ingredients are kohlrabi. It's in the Brussels sprout broccoli family, pretty mild. So Brussels sprouts for one. You can basically do a lot of things with it. You can take them, blanch them, smash them, fry them. They're really good. If you take them and fry them, hit them with a little bit of lemon juice, some Parmesan cheese, they taste almost like a vegetable potato chip. Kombucha squash, one of my favorites. So it's a cross between like a pumpkin and like a butternut squash. You can make like a mash with it. You can take it and fry them, slice them really thin. Acorn squash, again, another favorite of mine. For me, I try and keep it as simple as possible. So with those, I'll take them, slice them, and just cook them in the oven at a really high heat, get them really crispy, and hit them with a little bit of sugar. So like for me personally, my kids love them that way. Kale, another fan favorite at home. Collard greens, can't really go wrong with that. apples, pears, broccoli, just try and stay in that kind of family. Those things are pretty hearty, and you can overcook them and they'll still be good.
So obviously all of that sounds absolutely amazing. And I think from a business perspective though, are these when you start talking about some of the seasonal vegetables and the seasonal proteins that are coming into play, kind of what's the mindset then from a business standpoint of pricing this out and costing these out? Are there things that you're just I want to use but I just can't touch because they're just not cost effective, or some of these ingredients that you just talked about really are able to kind of stretch out and they're hearty and they really help make a dish more cost effective?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So they're pretty hearty. So a little bit kind of goes a long way. And, if you wanted to make a really good dish, say the kombucha squash, for example, a 3 to 4 ounce portion could be enough to fill someone up. So when you're looking at being cost effective, that's some of the things you're going to look at, along with cross utilization of product. So with the kombucha squash, you can go from roasting it to pureeing it and making a soup out of it. One of the things I used to do was a chocolate pumpkin soup. Very simple, but in the restaurant I worked at the time, I used to cross utilize that particular squash. I did a lot of things with Brussels sprouts, a lot of beets, um, you know, going along those lines. So soups, chilies, stews, utilizing your leftovers. And then if you want to get really creative, you can serve them raw. You can use them in a salad, or maybe replace the lettuce on your salad with shredded kohlrabi slaw, or incorporate some of those things into a pasta dish, make some type of meal prep with a bowl. So meaning like sticky rice with roasted Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, some ginger carrots, all really simple ingredients, all really cost effective, and it'll fill you up and it'll taste really good.
Now, the key word out of all that is cross utilization,
Right.
and I think that's just finding an ingredient that you love working with, and just challenging yourself and how many different ways can I use this ingredient. And from a business standpoint, obviously, if we're able to buy in a larger quantity, typically you'll see that you're going to get a better price. And if you can utilize, roasted butternut squash. Then we have our butternut squash soup, and then maybe have the side of butternut squash within, some type of protein. You're going to see that go a long way when it comes to cost effectiveness. But I think hands down, word of the day is cross utilization.
And I
Really
would say
cool.
a lot of root vegetables are being utilized, Chef. What other root vegetables would you recommend during this season?
So radishes, beets, turnips, all really good root vegetables that can be served raw or cooked. So which really opens you up for, like Jason was saying, cross utilization. So getting the most out of those products. So apples, pears, really, really good items. So, and they hold up for a period of time. So say if you buy or you over purchase, and you're sitting on it for a week or two, you can still come back to it within that time frame and still be able to use that product. It's still going to be just as good from the moment that it was pulled. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, things in those families all hold up really well. Cabbage. So you can take those things, and I can go for days
Yeah,
talking about things that we can utilize with that. So just beets, for example, you can use the root, you can use the leafy greens on the top. So make you a nice salad, and then hold on to the root bottom and make you a roasted beet. So again, really simple.
And I think it's, what is most important about this too is just, challenging yourself as, a culinary professional, and trying to think outside the box, for, the cross utilization of one product. It should be fun. It's, you don't want to be stuck doing the same thing. So challenge yourself, and just have fun with it and be creative. And at the end of the day, know your client and what they like, and be able to take those, take those risks. So obviously that's great. The inspiration, and I think that's going to leave a lot of the members, thinking of, okay, what am I going to use next? So a lot of the members that we work with had been doing a lot of catering, right? And as we know, the world completely turned upside down. And in the hospitality industry, a lot of these large catering events that the members were relying on, whether it was weddings or whether it was outdoor, events that were 50 plus people, all went away. So we saw a lot of transition from, large format catering to now 6 to 10 guests, or now we're just doing small families of 4, or maybe it's just one person at home that does, is still working and doesn't want to cook for themselves all week. And we get more into meal prep. So I kind of want to spend the rest of this time talking about, catering and meal prep. And I think if we just strip everything down and go from the beginning of what we should be looking at before we get into even cooking, is really this organization and what are the key components to execute a successful meal prep plan or catering plan from you, the chef, to then a client. So I guess, what are some organizational tools that you use in-house that just help keep things, or at least help keep your mind focused when I know you have 100 other things going on,
Right.
and you have to execute maybe 5 or 6 meals in that week? What's some of the organizational plans you have in place?
So for me, catering, that's my wheelhouse. When I first started getting into cooking, that was what I did from the age of 14, almost up until now. So I got a good amount of experience, life experience in catering. So for me, I started at the very basic. So you create an event order. So that event order has all your detailed information, starting with your menu, when you're serving it, what time, how many people, um, where are you going to be serving it. So from there, that's your foundation. You build from there. You go into staffing if you have any. So like right now, obviously it's a different time than in the past. So you may be the only staff member that you have. Think about, again, foundation, contact information for either your staff or whomever you're serving your food to. A menu. So your event order would have your menu on it, but aside from just the event order, you have to have a basic menu that you're going to be going off of. Yes, there's a good amount of customization when it comes to catering. If it wasn't for that, most of us probably wouldn't even have an operating business. Recipes that go along with that. So yeah, it's good to have a menu, but if you can't execute on it, and again, have that repeatability, the consistency, and that can be used as a training tool for other folks that you may bring into your business, or also training your customer. So I think a lot of folks, they talk about, I'm training my team, but you also got to train your customer, because what if your dining style is different than everyone else's? And what if it's new to the market? Again, being cost effective. So it's nice to have a good menu. It's nice to be creative. It's nice to have the repeatability, but if you're not making any money, then you're going to have a really short business. Next one is scalability. So we can have an event for 100, 1,000, one person, 5 people. But the expectation is that food is going to be the exact same every single time they have it, whether it be large scale or small scale. So you have to be able to take that recipe and produce it for a large number, and then also be able to scale it back for a smaller number. From there, you look at your equipment that you're going to be using. So now with folks doing meal prep, they may need to buy new equipment, or maybe get rid of some of the equipment that they have on hand, or just figure out what they're going to be using the equipment that they have, period. And then tracking. So if you have staff, if you have associates that are working for you, you have to be able to track their costs, meaning their labor. So our labor and our food are the 2 things that we can control when it comes to operating a food service business. There are 2 controllables that can make or break our business. So if our labor is really high, our food costs really high, then that means that for the most part, we're not going to be making any money. We want to try and keep those numbers as low as possible, but not jeopardize the quality of the food that we're going to be serving. And then also making sure that it's going to be consistent. So if we're walking into meal prep from doing catering, or maybe partnering that with our catering business, we got to take a look at high level, larger scale. So meaning packaging. You can't feed people out of your hands, right? So when it comes to that, you got to make sure you have a good container that is going to be, again, cost effective, but it's going to meet the needs of yourself and your customers. So maybe you have a container that can go directly from the refrigerator into an oven or microwave, and something that won't potentially harm your guests, potentially harm the food that's in it. Um, and then next one for me is safety. So food safety for me goes hand in hand with food quality. So, think of PPE. Like everyone's talking about PPE with COVID right now, but prior to COVID, for me, PPE involved making sure I had thermometers, I had gloves, I had towels, I had sanitizer, I had wipes, and transport. So we have to make sure that if we produce food in one location, we take it somewhere else. If it's going to be cold, we can't break that cold chain. So it's going to come from our refrigeration units to wherever we're going to take it, or maybe someone's going to pick it up. But either way, it has to be in some type of vessel that's going to keep it safe. So, like I was saying, if it's going to be cold, it has to stay cold. If it's going to be hot, it has to stay hot from the moment you cook it until the time it's served. And making sure that you're tracking all this with some type of food tracking sheet. So, which gives you a layer of protection for yourself and for your guests. So, a lot of times, to give an example, folks automatically assume that the last meal that they ate is what caused them to have some type of foodborne illness, some foodborne intoxication, when a lot of times it's something that you had 12, sometimes 24 hours before. And just like a lot of people, I can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago. So when it comes to that, we have to make sure as an operator that we're protecting our food, the integrity of our business. So we monitor and we cook food to the proper temperature based upon what it is. We hold it to the right temp for the appropriate amount of time. And then also we can produce that documented information whenever we need to. And I think it's even more critical when it comes to catering, especially if you're going to be transporting product. So, which gives you a good amount of opportunity for things to go wrong, especially when it comes to food safety. But as long as you have enough ammunition and you know that you did everything right and is well documented, you can cover your own tail.
And I think, another important point about all of that is all of that cost the price of ink and a couple pieces of paper. So are there tools and systems out there that, huge corporations get? Of course there are, but really from a level of, it's all you have to do is print this piece of paper, be able to say, here's my time temp control log. There's free templates all over the internet for time temp control logs. And even more so, there's catering templates that you can pull from online and just have 7 clipboards in your house or somewhere that has Monday through Sunday, and it has everything listed there, and it's something that you daily check. If you have Alexa in your house, remind Alexa. If you have a phone, all you have to do is set reminders, and there's ways to just kind of, with so many different things going on, there's ways and systems that you can put into place that are no extra charge to really just help keep your mind at ease, and it allows you then to execute the culinary portion of it. But I think you hit the nail on the head with everything there. So to kind of take exactly what you said, so you have this organization, these pinpoints in place, and now we're going to create a new dish, or maybe it's an existing dish, right? Kind of what does that look like from a catering standpoint, start to finish, of I'm going to test it out in the kitchen, and then now I have a group of 50 guests that want to order, 3 full pans of this product. What does that look like? And the word is scalability. Like, how do you start from tasting a menu item to then, all right, now this can go, for a party of 50 or more, or maybe it's just a meal prep item, but kind of what does that process then look like?
I think that when you start that process, before it even makes it onto a final menu, it has to be tested multiple times. So with that testing, you think about what exactly you're trying to create, like what am I looking for as far as a dish goes? And then once you figure out what that idea is, you write down conceptually what that menu or what that recipe is going to be. And first thing you got to figure out is how many people you're going to serve from that individual meal, from the individual menu. But, you cook the dish. Once you realize what the recipe is, you taste it. While you're doing that process, you take notes. So what I do when I create a new dish is I have a notebook or a piece of paper, something to write it down with. And every step I take, I'll sit down, write down exactly how much of each thing I'm putting in there. And then when I get to the completed dish on how I want it to taste, how many people I want to serve from that particular recipe, I have it all written down. Next thing I do is I'll cost it out. So I'll have a master list of what all the ingredients, typically what I usually use. And of course, there's going to be some wild cards for things that may or may not be on that list. But even if I don't have that list, at least I have an idea on all the ingredients, how many of how the unit of measure for each ingredient that's going to be going into it, and then I go from there. So I'll take that recipe, for example, I'll scale it for maybe 5 people, especially when it comes to catering. It's not a restaurant, so most of the time it's not going to be for one individual person. So I'll do it based upon 5 people, and then I know that I can generally feed out of a half hotel pan that's 2.5 inches deep, 20 people. So that means I'm going to have to multiply that recipe by 4. So I take that same math and then I scale it up or scale it down or multiply up or multiply down to feed, the masses. So if I take that same recipe, if it goes from feeding 5, I know I can double it and feed 10, or times it by 10 to feed 50, and go from there. So, and then usually when you're scaling things up that large, then you got to take into effect of your cooking methods. So, fried chicken isn't necessarily going to be the same way as I would do it for 5 as I do for 50, especially if I'm going to transport. Those are some of the things that I think about, and what my final taste panel is going to be based upon all of that. It has to taste the exact same from either 5 or again for 50.
So when you talk about kind of portion sizes, I mean, is there a rule of thumb, or is there just something that someone could say, okay, I know 6 ounces of this will feed one person, because nothing is worse than, handling a catering order and you just see so much food left over, and you just see money and you're like, oh my God, I could have saved so much more money. Or nothing's worse when the host of the party comes up to you and says, 20 people didn't eat. Where did the miscommunication happen? So I guess, is there a rule of thumb or a practice that we should be putting into place when it comes to portioning properly to save us money, and also to make sure that our guest is happy?
It really does. So usually the way I look at it is I do 4 ounce, 6 to 8 ounce, or 12 ounce portion. So generally your 4 ounce portion will be your protein, your side, and your veg. So that will add up to your 12 ounce portion if it's a single serve meal. So like if I'm doing a meal prep, in that container is generally about 12 ounces because there's about 4 ounces of each. If it's going to be a buffet type setting, I usually make the portion between 6 and 8 ounces because folks tend to eat a little bit more when there's a buffet type of setting. So usually I won't scale too much higher than that unless someone specifically asks for that to be a little bit more. And then the next one is using measuring utensils. So that measuring utensil will usually be some type of spoodle, scoops are really good, whether it be an ice cream scoop or even a very small ice scoop. The next one will be a ladle. Generally I try not to use tongs because folks will just grab way too much than what they can probably consume. We all eat with our eyes. If something looks really good, you're going to grab a ton of it, and a lot of times your stomach cannot catch up. So that's usually where I'm at.
So absolutely, could not agree more. And from a mindset of a lot of the utensils you just named, they all have, portion control on them. You know exactly how much someone is taking. You know how many ounces you're pulling from a half pan, full pan, whatever the case may be, from a catering standpoint. From a costing standpoint. So now we've costed everything out. We know exactly what a half pan is going to cost us. We know how many people it ideally feeds. Same thing with a full pan. From a costing perspective, what are some key things that we really need to think about? Obviously, for if you're within the enterprise center, you have to think about kitchen costs. Are you bringing in any outside labor, ingredient costs, paying yourself? But, now that you've calculated all that, what should be someone charging,
So that's a really good question. I think that at times folks or people generally, they're not sure how much they should charge. You know, like I think that I make a really good dish, whether no matter what that is. So I feel like I should be able to charge more because it's a really good dish. It's better than everyone else's. I think that's the mindset of what everyone thinks. But the first thing I do, and a lot of the managers and chefs that I work with, we do market research. So we take a look at what other people are doing that are making similar dishes that are comparable to mine or menu, and I usually do that first. So I don't know, it's just taking a fried chicken sandwich. I know like right now the market might be $5 for one, but it might be a basic chicken sandwich. So if I add a little bit more to it, maybe I do like an heirloom cheese or put some heirloom tomatoes on there, a house made bacon, or maybe I make my own bun. Then I can charge maybe $7 or $8. But then I can also say that I added all these really nice ingredients, which put it above everyone else. So that's where I would start when it comes to figuring out what your pricing is. And then figure out what you want your profit margin to be. Like generally food costs is about 25%, try and keep labor below 30. So right there, you're looking at 55%. And that's not including all your utilities. It's not including just incidentals that come into play, which we all know is going to happen. So our margin for profit a lot of times is only 10%. So we have to protect that 10% as much as possible. So a lot of times when I'm talking to individuals, especially in our line of business, I'm like, what do you do to market your food? What do you do to market your business? Like, I think our phones is our most important tool. Take pictures, post them on social media as much as possible, and make sure that people know about your business so that when it comes to you and what you do, you got to make sure that everyone knows that you're better than everyone else.
Absolutely. I think knowing your competition or just knowing what is going on in your market is, it's huge. It's absolutely something that's needed, and to be able to talk about your brand and your product, and in case someone does say, well, I could go to John's Catering down the street. Why am I going there? Well, why you're coming to me is because X, Y, and Z. And like you said, we use heirloom tomatoes. I bake my own bread, and just having that is I think essential when it comes to pricing out your catering menu. And I think the play on that too is it's a very small margin of profit, right? But knowing all of the things we've talked about before, your costs, having it written down, everything laid out, and knowing what you're going into, and knowing what your profit's going to be, or maybe your break even is okay. And every client that you talk to and bring in is going to be different, because you never know what type of outreach that client is, and can you get to 5% instead of 20%. So very important to know your costs. That said,
I'm sorry, not to interrupt. Before we
please,
is think about your menu mix. So not every menu item is going to have the same profit margin either. So I should have included that in the first part, but when we look at a menu, just think about a restaurant. Not everything on there is going to give you that 10% gross profit margin. A lot of things may be at 40%, and those might be your movers. But then your steak, the more costly items, may be only 5%. So
and that's something that, as a business owner, you continue to grow your business, you can continue to grow your brand, you continue to track what you're selling, what you're not selling, and call it the movers, those top 3 items. Well, now you're a year into business, you're about to, turn into your busy season for the following year. You can go back and go, well, what did I sell the most of? Oh, these 3. Well, let me reevaluate my ingredients. Let me reevaluate my portion control. How can I make those more profitable? Is something that a lot of us just need to do and track, and that way every year you continue to build on that. And once again, if you find an ingredient that is just a home run on cost, start using that in more recipes than one. So transitioning, into what are the amazing cost-effective products, what are some products that we should kind of stay away from? And I'll give you an example of not to stay away from it, but when it comes to costing things out, I'll use a short rib as an example, right? So we go in, we find short rib at $14.99 a pound. And we're like, oh, okay, $14.99 a pound times 5 pounds equals this. I get X amount of portions out of it. And then you cook it and you take it out. And then half of your portions go away. And now you went from $14.99 a pound to almost at $29.98 a pound. So that's kind of my example. So are there some products out there that sound so good that guests want, but might not be the best cost-effective product out on the market?
I think the short rib was a really good example. As soon as you started talking about that, was the first thing that popped into my mind.
Number one answer.
No, you got to think about your muscles that you're going to be producing. So short rib, brisket, ribs are muscles that are really worked hard, and they shrink by 40% when they're cooked. So that goes into just backpedaling into scalability, right? So you take that short rib, it might start at, say, even $7 a pound. After you get done cooking, now it's at 14 because you lost half in the cooking process. But look at your ingredient, look at the way in order to prepare it. I think are some of the most important things that you need to consider. And then also think about how exactly you're going to be serving it. So like I used fried chicken as an example a little while ago. If I'm doing meal prep, fried chicken is not going to be one of the things I'm going to be serving. Not unless it's coming directly out of the fryer. I'm not really going to be holding it. I'm going to be serving it right away. One of the things that's most delicious about fried chicken is the crispy outer layer, right? So the skin, whatever, the breading, the batter, that's on there. So some shellfish too, and whole fish. So you got to take a look at your ingredient. You don't want to jeopardize the integrity of the product. And then cost is right there with the integrity for me. So you're not necessarily going to prepare a whole lobster, put it into a container, transport it, and still expect it to be just as delicious as when you got done cooking it. Mussels, clams, oysters, I wouldn't necessarily do that for meal prep unless there's, special circumstances, unless, I'm going to be serving it cold. But there's way too many things that could go wrong when it comes to serving those ingredients. There's the food integrity, the food safety, the cost, was huge. And what happens if you lose a couple $100 worth of your product in the process of overcooking or transport, or it just doesn't come out the way that you want because you may not have all the tools you need to prepare correctly? That's money that's going in the trash. You might as well take that money and burn it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, obviously, our hospitality family, and that's really what we are, as just taken such a hit over the past, 10 months here. And any words of encouragement for everyone, whether they're just starting their business now and just became a member of the CCE, or anyone that's been a member for, years and trying to kind of pivot and transition their business and just get through to 2021, any words of wisdom and encouragement?
Yeah, so I deal with a lot of, culinarians, both front and back of the house, that have gone through a lot of hardship over these last 9-10 months, and it's definitely not easy. So some of the first few things I tell them is, have fun as much as you can. The one thing that's good about our profession, people always need to eat. So whether you're going to be feeding them under normal circumstances with your catering business, or maybe you transition into meal prep, I think one of the things that make us most successful as a community is the amount of imagination that we have. So what I tell my chef counterparts, we're only limited by our imagination when it comes to producing food and the things that we can come up with. So I just tell them to take that and run with it. Don't let anybody tell you no. Stay hungry and keep learning as much as possible. So continue your education. A lot of us have a lot more time on our hands at home right now. So for me personally, I've been taking that time as much as possible, trying to learn new things when it comes to our world. Again, when it comes to culinary, it's always changing. I can't remember a time where it just stayed stagnant when it came to ingredients, cooking techniques, ways of service. It's always going to change. again, take as many pictures as possible. Figure out a new hobby when it comes to food. You know, like I was talking to another chef, I was like, start doing food photography. You know, people do it all the time, and then some folks will turn it into a business. You don't need a ton of education. It really, you can learn by experience, you know, and then be comfortable. And then, but don't be too comfortable, because comfort equals complacency. So learn a new craft, you know, excel at it, which we all know that we can do. And, you know, just keep trying to feed as many people as possible.
Love it. No, to piggyback off of that, I think with that creative mindset and just really thinking outside the box, and um, you know, I think the things of community as a whole, and starting to think, yes, we're in the culinary mindset, but how can we get our product in the hands of others, but while still helping other, friends, family, or other members of our community. And, the one thing I tell a few of the members that I talk to is find another business that's outside of the restaurant industry that, shares the same type of clients that you share. And what a great opportunity would be that maybe every Wednesday you do a pop-up there, or like a pickup where, hey, you have a meal prep plan, you promote it on social media, and on Wednesdays, guests can come into this store to pick up your meal prep. And now you're engaging with, this other store's clients, and that store is also getting business from your clients that you're bringing there, and just really thinking outside the box when it comes to being more part of the community, supporting other small businesses, but at the same time promoting your business and getting yourself out there and out of your comfort zone. And even more so too is how you just said, we all have a lot more time on our hands in regards to wanting to share knowledge. And I think it's really important that, why not take that opportunity? If there's a celebrity chef, or there's, a beer maker or wine maker that you'd love to talk to and learn from, shoot them an email, send them a direct message in Instagram or Facebook, and say, hey, can I pick your brain for 20 minutes? And you just never know what type of response you're going to get. And I really, truly believe in humanity and our industry of really wanting to see everyone come out in a positive way, and just share as much information as we can. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Keep pushing through, and just everyone stay positive. Really, that's what it's all about. And, as we continue to build this family within the Enterprise Center and the CCE, you just have so many more resources that we can all go to. So I really appreciate your time. Val, thank you so much for putting this together. All the members out there, we are planning on doing more of these. Please look out for an email from Val. We want you to submit your questions to us per the topic that we're going to cover. So you'll see an email come out next month for our next guest speaker series. Send me questions. I'll be able to ask our guest speaker those questions. But we want to continue this, because this is what it's all about: sharing our ideas and keeping our industry alive, right? So happy holidays, everyone. Chef, thank you very much. We will chat soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.